Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Krashy, and today we're going to be diving into our V0.17 patch tier list for the jungle. You can see this beautiful tier list here in front of me that I've already built out, and we're going to dive into my thoughts and feelings. This is predominantly a solo queue tier list. The vast majority of us are not playing competitive and 5 stacks all the time, and I'll give some thoughts on competitive, but predominantly a solo queue, duo queue kind of pub tier list. That I would prefer to focus on because I think that that's better for the majority of the players, the people that will watch this video. So drop a like on the video, subscribe for future Predecessor content, and let's dive into my thoughts and feelings about all of this. Yeah, let's take a look at it. So first and foremost, let's dive into the C tier. Now, I know it might be crazy to see Serath in the C tier, but I promise you, she's just really not that good. She's really not that good in jungle. I've been pushing her lower and lower, and the reason why I think I had her higher to begin with in previous tier lists is that she has the potential to get super fed, and she has the potential to pop off and kill everything on the field. But that potential is honestly not, it's not reliable. It's not reliable at all. I think the issue with Serath is that she has incredibly terrible clear. If you build her like a carry, she's super squishy and can be dealt with very easily. If you build her like a bruiser, she feels awful to play. She's just super sluggish and slow to get online, and ultimately I just think that she's like failing to do the job that someone else on this list can most likely do better, far better. You know, she's kind of decent in offlane with like a couple of matchups, and in general, I kind of view her as like a bottom 3, maybe bottom 5 hero in the game entirely. She's just kind of not anywhere close to where I think she needs to be a viable pick in most scenarios. So yeah. All right, let's S tier down to B tier now. We got Khaimera in the S tier, and this is both a competitive pick and a like solo queue, duo queue, casual tier list placement. This character, this hero, is an animal. He is the jungler of the game. He is incredibly self-sufficient. He has phenomenal invade potential. He heals the hell out of himself with his spirit regeneration and his his passive healing, his healing on his cleanse. He has a cleanse that's an activatable. He can be built very versatilely. Like, he can be full tank if you really need to, or close to full tank if you really need a strong frontliner. He can be very bruiser heavy and bring a lot of damage to the team. Khaimera is absolutely one of the best jungles in the game. He's easy to learn. Definitely the jungle that everyone should just pick up if they're trying to learn the jungle. Easy to learn, super effective. It's not like the gimmick where he's easy to learn, but he's not actually that good. He's actually that good, and he's easy to learn, and he gets picked in competitive, and he has everything you would need. Now, his smite, how does it feel to smite the camp or use your hunt on the camp to truly secure the objective? Because that's a big part of playing the jungle role. It's great if you're holding your ultimate and you say you're ripping an objective and the jungler jumps in. You can, if you know the timing well, you gotta learn the timing. You can rip the ultimate, they're stunned, you smite it in the middle of that animation, and then cool, they can't do it. Kwang has been, on the back end of a couple nerfs now, but still feels incredibly solid. I think the thing with Kwang, definitely a nice benefit of Kwang, is that he brings magic damage to the jungle role, where you don't really get a lot of that in general. So that's a nice little added benefit. Definitely not the main reason you play him, but he's got really solid early on-field presence. Like, you can gank pretty often with him. He brings phenomenal CC with the tether and the knockup. So like his sword throw and his dash into the sword throw for the knockup. And he's tanky and does damage, and he just kind of does a little bit of everything you want to do. I feel like the jungle role has progressed a little bit more on the damage front and a little less on the tanky front. We're going to talk about that in a little bit. And now Kwang's smite presence, I guess that's what I want to call it, smite presence, his smite secure, isn't the best. Like, it's not bad by any means, but he doesn't have that, like, oh, I'm going to build in, stun you, and then smite secure. I mean, you could set that up, but I think it's a little volatile to, like, oh, he's running in, let me throw my sword and dash into it and try to make sure that I'm smiting all at the same time. So really, you just smite based off like normal smite instincts, right? Like, you're watching the damage, you see the number get lower, and then you try to rip that smite. Zarus is kind of like a perfect jungler right now. Zarus has good clear, good on-field presence, good ganks, good pick potential. You can play him tanky if you really need to. You can build him like full bruiser. It's got that bruiser versatility that a lot of the bruisers in the game have, where you can run a bunch of different items on him, and he's just feeling insane lately. He definitely, like, to me, crept his way into the S tier. I just didn't really put too much emphasis on him, but I'm seeing, the Berserker Axe go a little bit crazy. I'm seeing the potential of just like running people down in that mid to late game. Not to mention he's got solid early game like on-field presence where you can, run out and go for a gank as well, dash in, land that stun, and then, have some follow-up from whatever lane that you're ganking. Zarus feels really, really good. His smite potential, or whatever smite presence, it's solid, right? You can definitely hold the shield out, or like hold on to the shield, and if somebody jumps in, you can quickly smack them with it and then try to smite with that. Or you could just right click and burst it down. So yeah, pretty solid overall. I also think that the mitigation on his shield is definitely not something to ignore. For big objectives like Orb Prime that's going to shoot out the missiles, you can mitigate a lot of that damage by just timing your shield right. With Fang Tooth and the kind of like fiery breath that it does, the Primal Fang Tooth, you can mitigate a lot of that damage as well. So definitely gives him some good presence on the objectives to actually be the one sitting there tanking it. I mean, Orb Prime missiles hits everybody, but you get the point. It's less volatile than being someone like a Kallari sitting there tanking all that damage, as opposed to Zarus, right? And that's a big benefit for Khaimera too, because he's very self-sufficient in his own healing, where he just kind of sits there and heals a ton, which is really, really phenomenal on objectives. Now, Crunch and Kallari are both in the A+ tier for a very similar reason. They are insane in the early to mid game. I think that they do slightly fall off. Crunch much more than Kallari, but their ability to potentially snowball games is almost unmatched in this entire list of jungle selections. Crunch, very, very solid right at the level 6 mark. Like, almost nobody can deal with him. In fact, Crunch at level 6 is a menace to Khaimera. So one of the few, like, what I feel like is a Khaimera counter in the game. And for the sake of saying, I'm not going to do a whole section where I talk about counters and things like that. But I do think that Drongo is like one of the best carries in the game, really messes with Khaimera. So keep that in mind, friends out there. And Gideon is like, it's not too terrible, but it's not fun to play in as Khaimera, playing into a Gideon. So just a couple of thoughts. Those are two heroes that I really don't like playing into when I'm playing Kai. But anyways, back to Crunch. Crunch, yeah, he's got really fast clear. His early to mid game is incredibly fast. He's got crazy mobility with his ability to like dash and then re-crunch that, or whatever the names are. And yeah, he's a menace to a point. He hits a point in the game where he's getting CC'd a lot, he's getting silenced. It's really hard to make Crunch work, probably toward that late game. But early to mid game, the potential to get just really, really fed and really big, invade camps and do things like that is very, very strong. Really, really strong ganker, especially at that level 6 mark, where you can use all of your abilities in tandem together and get the right combinations that you need. Crunch also has that little bruiser benefit where it's like you can build, you mostly build him damage, but you can build into some tank items. You should build into some tank items on Crunch. So it gives you a little bit of that frontline presence. If your team comp doesn't really have it, you can utilize that a little bit more the sooner you need to. Crunch, it's even hard sometimes to lock down a build for Crunch because you can build a lot, and it just kind of depends on what you need. Kallari, like I said, insane potential early to mid game to get very, very fed and just take over the game and snowball the game on her own. Super, super strong, true assassin. Gets a lot of information off of her stealth with like spotting out wards and things like that, and then it's just incredibly mobile and can really be a backliner's nightmare. So really, really solid steal potential. Like you can stealth in, ult in, steal the objective, double jump over the wall. So really, really solid steal potential. I would say that when it comes to Crunch, not the best smite presence. Like you could try to time a knockup, but it's not the best. Greystone. Greystone is on this list because he is like a beautiful bruiser with really annoying parts of the kit to deal with, like having to kill him twice. Can be built on that bruiser front, same thing like the other bruisers, or can be very, very tanky. Tends to be played very tanky, or even kind of hybrid where you're doing like a Fire Blossom into Basilisk, and then you kind of go either full tank or full bruiser from there. So yeah, Greystone just very, very annoying to deal with. He doesn't have a ton of on-field presence early to mid. He's kind of a scaling jungler. You can jump out and gank, and you shouldn't just leave people to like the lanes to themselves. So you can definitely jump out and gank, but he doesn't have any built-in CC. So you kind of have to have like a lane set up your gank, and then at that point, like it may just be better to farm. So Greystone definitely not the best jungler in the game, but a very, very solid jungler. Smite presence is solid because for the same reason Rampage has really strong smite presence. You just kind of can't get rid of them super easily. If the timing isn't super, super early, then he can forcibly like 50-50 the objective with you, which sometimes can go in, that player's direction or their way. So really strong damage, really good invade potential with the mobility. You can jump over walls, you can get the hell out of there. You can invade 2 camp and either use the flower or jump over the wall. You can invade 5 camp and jump over the wall. There's really good invade potential with a hero like Greystone. So pretty solid pick in the jungle. Now Rampage, if Khaimera wasn't on the list, like say Khaimera didn't exist at all, I think Rampage would be the other S tier. So probably the strongest of the A plus tiers. Really, really strong early presence on field. And when I say that, what I mean by that is like gank potential, like really strong early presence with ganks. You don't have to just sit in the jungle and farm with this hero. You can come out with the rock. You can really impact the lanes early, even if it's not a kill. You can get the smite out, or you can get a flash out. You can potentially get a pick or an assist. Really, really strong potential. He is like used to be this like full tank animal now, and you can do that if the team comp calls for it. It's a little bit slow in the jungle, but now he's just like bruiser tank, and we're seeing more and more of that in the kind of meta. And as you look at the A plus tier and the S tier, you're seeing a lot more bruiser tanks that are just like really strong bruisers that can build pretty tanky, that are hitting the list over the tanks. And I'm going to talk about why here in a minute. So Rampage, super solid again. He has his ultimate. It's really hard to stop him unless he just jumps in way too early. You can't really flip, or you're running the risk of flipping the objective because he just has so much health and he's going to be really big. And yeah, he can stall out time to potentially steal that objective. Feng Mao this is definitely like a solo queue perspective on the jungle, because I actually don't think his jungle is nearly as good as his offlane, but he's really slow starting. When you get the Mind Razor online and you're just farming and farming and farming, he hits a point where he just clears the jungle like incredibly fast. So you don't really do anything until level 6 on him. You just kind of like giga farm to 6 and then you start being a presence. But he has that potential to just take a game over. It's his kit, it's his kill potential, the reset on the ultimate. His smite presence is nothing insane, right? But he just has the potential to scale incredibly well. He scales so well in this game, and Feng Mao can definitely be a reason why you win or lose a game. So yeah, it makes the A plus tier just on that like solo queue sentiment alone. I think he has definitely huge potential to take over a game. I think competitively speaking, he's probably better in the offlane. Now A tier, we got to talk about the 3 tanks. The meta, it just feels like it's shifted away from tank jungles. They're all still good. They're all definitely playable in the jungle. You can Fire Blossom all 3 of them and they can clear, but it's slow. It's really slow. And I think with what feels like the jungle meta shifting a little bit more aggressive, or players are getting better, or people in teams and or whether it's solo queue or not, are looking for every advantage they can get, you're seeing more and more invading. You're seeing more and more coordinated efforts to slow the enemy jungler down and to try to remove them from play. And these tanks are slow. They are admittedly slower than some of the others. Now, first clear, if you can get your whole first clear off and you can get your brimstone, you're chilling. If that gets interrupted at all, it's going to slow you down quite a bit, and it can get to a point where it feels like you're just constantly playing catch up. Both Riktor and Steel, and Serath are phenomenal having a team. I just think that they're feeling more and more suited for their other roles. Riktor is like mostly feeling like a support to me. I really don't like him in jungle currently, and then offlane, Steel, Serath, they're mostly feeling like offlaners to me. Again, all 3 of them can be played in the jungle. I still think that they're good. They're good picks, especially if you're not in 5-stack competitive. This may even be, they may even be more viable than some of the A plus tier in solo queue, or like in duo queue specifically, because you could be playing with like a carry friend of yours, or say like a mid laner, and then you're ganking them with a tank. So if you can guarantee like someone's playing with you, then I think that they could be pretty solid. So I might have them a little lower, but I don't want to really overstack the A plus tier. But yeah, they're still viable. Everything A and up feels really, really good to play. I just think they're just slightly less viable in my eyes to try to carry and win games, and even in competitive, than the A plus and the S tier. So do with that what you will. Really strong like smite presence and potential. You have shield slam from Steel, shield bash, and then smite. You have Riktor ult or hook and smite, increases the damage there. I guess Serath is pretty decent just because he's got a big health pool, but if they step in and he has his ultimate, he can swing the ultimate and then smite. And then we got Countess. Countess is here because she feels a little volatile. Like, she feels like she can definitely take over a game. And if she gets fed, then she's going to dominate. And if she, like, super farms without the enemy team getting fed and can scale, then she's going to dominate. So I think Countess feels really solid, but it's just a little bit more volatile, and I'm not a huge fan of it. But definitely she can take over games and do some insane things. Yeah, I don't think there's much more to say about that. She can get really fed and become impossible to deal with, but it doesn't always happen. So B tier, we got Grux. I know everybody thinks Grux is OP. He's really not, especially not in the jungle. His kit essentially, here's the reason why he's not a great jungle. His kit essentially isn't geared for jungle. His like smash and grab doesn't pull the camps and it doesn't really do that much damage. His cooldowns are long. He has his like, you know, his cleaver sweep thing, and that's like the only thing that's good for jungle. But otherwise, you're just using like your actual like tools on long cooldowns in the jungle to clear, and then you don't really have like good ganks. Like he's slow. His best gank requires him to flash into the gank. I actually think that's like the best way to gank with him. I mean, obviously you can walk at him still too. It's not impossible. It just doesn't feel great. And you can still win, and you can still Grux on him, and you can still get super fed from it. But he's just not really a jungler. Like you basically will never see him in competitive, I don't think. Not really. Maybe every now and then there's niche cases. But yeah, he just doesn't feel great in the jungle. Definitely a much better offlaner. And Shinbi, the only reason honestly she's in B tier is because I think she's just being underexplored right now. It's like I actually think she's way better than this, but she just doesn't really see a ton of play either competitively or in a lot of solo queue jungle. But she's pretty solid. She kind of has like she's kind of like the magical Greystone with a slightly different ultimate. You just kind of get in there and run people down. Now that's if you're playing bruiser. So if Greystone's playing full bruiser and Shinbi's playing like a full bruiser build, they're actually very similar. Her ult is a little bit more damage focused. His is a little bit more on the attrition survivability focus. If you're playing her full assassin, she definitely has like a poke in and out, get as many like stacks on the enemy as you can, and then drop the ultimate on them and rip them down. I really like her bruiser build. I think that you can just kind of go in, sit on the back line, be very annoying, and dash through people, and yeah, it's really, really frustrating to deal with. But so I do think that she's a little bit better than B tier, but I'm putting her here just due to lack of exploration. Like people don't really play her much in ladder or in solo queue. You don't really see her in jungle too often. She doesn't ever get picked in competitive, so I think that like the perception of Shinbi's down a little bit, but she's pretty solid. So just wanted to kind of put her somewhere that felt like it made sense for what you're actually kind of seeing. But I do think that she could be explored and could definitely shift up the list in future tier lists. So friends, there you have it. Drop a like on the video and subscribe for future Predecessor content. It's relative. It's all just my opinion. Here or there, a pick could move up, down. Doesn't really matter. And this definitely comes from like a slightly competitive, slightly higher elo perspective. I totally get that, Serath might be like, well, what the heck? She's S tier. Like, I totally get that, but she's really not. As people get better at the game and improve and understand it a little bit more, you'll see opportunities for more invading and people taking advantage of the things they're actually supposed to be taking advantage of. And so yeah, it's a little bit different. So let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. As always, be sure to be kind to one another. Tell someone you love them, and I'll see you on the next video.